The great hall fell silent as Yuna stepped forward. Her silver robes moved like liquid metal in the dim light. Every eye in the room watched her. The Krillian Emperor knelt before her, his massive form trembling despite his warrior training. Behind him stood his greatest generals, their weapons and armor gleaming with the blood of 12 conquered worlds. Yuna looked down at the Emperor with eyes that had seen 300 years of disappointment. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow in the darkness. The Krillians had come here with such pride. They believed their military might would impress her. They thought their conquests would prove their worth to join the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. They were wrong. Emperor Vaktor of the Krillian Empire. Yuna's voice carried across the hall without effort. Each word felt like a judgment falling from the stars themselves. You have shown me your strength. You have displayed your victories. You have proven your power over others. The Emperor lifted his head slightly. Hope flickered in his red eyes. Perhaps she would accept his people. Perhaps the Krillians would finally join the great powers of space. Yuna felt the familiar emptiness growing in her chest. It was the same feeling she had experienced with every species that came before her. Something was missing, something important, that she could never quite identify. The Valari Council finds the Krillian Empire unworthy of ascension, she announced. The words hit the hall like a physical blow. Several Krillian generals stepped forward, their hands moving to their weapons. The Emperor raised one massive arm to stop them. His shoulders sagged with the weight of absolute defeat. May I ask why, Selector Yuna? The Emperor's voice broke slightly. We have shown you our might. We control 12 star systems. Our armies are feared across the galaxy. What more could you want? Yuna stared at him for a long moment. This was always the hardest part. How could she explain something she did not understand herself? How could she tell him that his greatest achievements left her feeling hollow and cold? Power is not wisdom, she said finally. Conquest is not civilization. Strength alone does not make a species ready for the responsibilities that come with joining us. The Emperor's face twisted with anger and confusion. Then what does? What must we do to prove ourselves to you? Yuna turned away without answering. She had no answer to give him. 3 centuries of evaluations had taught her what she did not want to see in a species, but she still did not know what she was looking for. The massive doors of the hall opened silently. Yuna walked through them without looking back. Behind her, she could hear the Emperor's roar of rage and despair echoing through the chamber. Another species rejected. Another civilization denied the chance to grow beyond their current limits. Bora waited for her in the corridor outside. Yuna's aide had served with her for over 50 years. Her green skin was marked with worry lines that had not been there when they first started working together. The council is growing impatient, Bora said quietly, as they walked toward their ship. That is the 100th species you have rejected in the past decade alone. Yuna said nothing. What could she say? That every species felt wrong somehow. That despite their achievements and their power, they all seemed to be missing something essential? Some of the council members are beginning to question the selector program itself, Bora continued. They wonder if perhaps the standards are too high, or if maybe you have lost your ability to judge correctly. The word stung because Yuna had wondered the same thing herself. In her early years as a selector, she had been confident in her abilities. The Valari had chosen her because she possessed a rare gift. She could sense the true nature of a species, their potential for growth and wisdom. But lately, that gift felt more like a curse. Their ship rose smoothly from the planet's surface. Through the viewing port, Yuna could see the great cities of the Krillian Empire spreading out below them. Millions of beings lived down there. They had families, dreams, hopes for the future, and she had just denied them the chance to reach for something greater. Do you think I am wrong? Yuna asked suddenly. Bora looked surprised. In all their years together, Yuna had never questioned her own judgment before. I think you see something the rest of us cannot, Bora replied carefully. But I also think you might be looking for something that does not exist. Yuna nodded slowly. She had considered that possibility many times. Perhaps her gift was broken. Perhaps she was searching for some impossible ideal that no species could ever reach. The communication system chimed softly. Bora activated it with a touch of her hand. The image of Council Leader Thane appeared in the air before them. His ancient face looked tired and concerned. Selector Yuna. His voice carried the weight of authority built over millennia. The Council has discussed your recent rejections. We understand that your standards are high and we respect your judgment. However, we must consider the possibility that no species will ever meet your requirements. Yuna felt her stomach tighten. She had been expecting this conversation for months. There is one more species we would like you to evaluate, Thane continued. They were discovered recently in a remote sector, a young race that calls themselves humans. They have only just begun to explore space beyond their own system. Another warrior race? Yuna asked wearily. No. Thane shook his head. From what? Our scouts report they seem to be primarily explorers and traders. Nothing particularly impressive about them. But the Council feels we should be thorough. Yuna sighed. Another species to disappoint. Another civilization to deny the chance for. Growth, very well, she said. Send me their location. Yuna. Thane's voice became gentler. I want you to know that regardless of what you decide about these humans, the Council values your service. But we may need to consider changes to the Selector program if this evaluation does not yield positive results. The image faded, leaving Yuna and Bora alone in the quiet ship. They both understood what Thane had really said. This might be her last chance to prove that the Selector program still worked. If she rejected the humans too, the Council might decide that her gift was gone. Set course for human space, Yuna told the ship's navigation system. As they jumped to faster-than-light travel, Yuna stared out at the stars rushing past them. Somewhere out there was a species called humans. They were probably just like all the others, eager to impress her, desperate to prove their worth, ready to show off their greatest achievements and their strongest warriors. She would evaluate them fairly, as she had all the others. She would look for that mysterious quality that seemed to exist nowhere in the galaxy, and when she did not find it, she would reject them too. The emptiness in her chest grew deeper as she prepared herself for another disappointment. 300 years of searching, and she was no closer to understanding what she was looking for than when she had started. Perhaps Bora was right. Perhaps what she sought simply did not exist. The human trading station appeared small and fragile against the backdrop of space. Yuna's massive ship moved toward it like a silver mountain floating through the darkness. Inside the station, alarms were probably screaming. The humans had never seen anything like her vessel before. Captain Jiwoo stood on the bridge of her trading ship, staring at the alien craft through the viewing screen. Her hands shook slightly as she gripped the command chair. Around her, the crew worked frantically, at their stations. Captain, they are sending a communication signal, reported Minho from the communication station. His voice was steady despite the fear in his eyes. Put it through, Jiwoo ordered. The screen flickered and Yuna's face appeared. The humans gasped at her pale blue skin and silver eyes. She looked like something from their oldest myths about gods and spirits. I am Selector Yuna of the Valari Council. Her voice filled the bridge. I have come to evaluate your species for possible inclusion in galactic civilization. Do not be afraid. If you cooperate, no harm will come to you. Jiwoo stepped forward, forcing her voice to remain calm. I am Captain Jiwoo of the human trading vessel Morning Star. We welcome you to our space, Selector Yuna. How can we help you? Yuna studied the human captain through the screen. Most species either attacked her ship immediately or fell to their knees begging for mercy. These humans seemed frightened, but curious. It was an interesting reaction. You will send representatives to meet with me on neutral ground, Yuna explained. I will evaluate your species based on what I observe. The process may take several days. What kind of representatives do you need? Jiwoo asked. Send your best, Yuna replied. Your greatest warriors, your wisest leaders, your most brilliant scientists. Show me what humanity has to offer the galaxy." The transmission ended, leaving the human bridge in stunned silence. First contact with alien life, and it was some kind of test they had never prepared for. 3 hours later, Yuna waited in the meeting hall of a neutral space station. The room was large and empty except for 2 chairs facing each other. She had done this same evaluation hundreds of times before. The pattern was always the same. The doors opened, and the human delegation entered. Yuna looked up, expecting to see impressive figures in ceremonial robes or military uniforms. Instead, she saw a group of ordinary people in simple work clothes. Captain Jiwoo led the group, followed by several crew members from her ship. Among them was Do-hyun, a mechanic who had been working on the ship's engines when the alien vessel appeared. He still had grease stains on his hands and looked confused about why he was there. "These are your representatives?" Yuna asked, not bothering to hide her surprise. "Our ship was the only human vessel in this sector," Jiwoo explained. "We did not have time to contact Earth or our colonies. These are the people we have available." Yuna felt a familiar disappointment settling in her chest. If this was the best humanity could offer, the evaluation would be over quickly. The formal presentations began. Captain Jiwoo spoke about human achievements in space exploration. She showed images of their cities, their art, their music. Another crew member, a scientist named Hyeon, explained their recent discoveries about faster-than-light travel. Yuna listened politely but felt her attention wandering. She had heard similar presentations from dozens of species. Every civilization was proud of their accomplishments. Every race thought their achievements made them special, but something kept drawing her attention away from the speakers. In the back of the room, Do-hyun sat quietly next to Minho. Occasionally, he would lean over and whisper something that made the other humans smile despite their obvious nervousness. When Hyun was explaining human mathematics, Do-hyun quietly handed a water bottle to another crew member who looked thirsty. When Captain Jiwoo stumbled over a difficult word, Do-hyun gave her an encouraging nod that seemed to help her regain confidence. These were small things, tiny gestures that had nothing to do with the formal evaluation, but for some reason, Yuna found them more interesting than the presentations about human science and culture. The formal sessions continued for 3 days. Each day, the humans showed her more of their achievements. They played music that was actually quite beautiful. They demonstrated technology that was impressive for such a young species. They spoke about their dreams of exploring the galaxy and meeting other civilizations. But each night, Yuna felt the same emptiness she had experienced with every other species. The humans seemed no different from the others. They were eager to impress her. They desperately wanted her approval. They focused on showing her their greatest accomplishments rather than their true nature. On the 3rd evening, the formal evaluation was complete. Yuna returned to her ship to consider her decision. The humans had performed adequately, but nothing she had seen suggested they possessed whatever quality she was searching for. She was preparing to write her rejection report when something made her pause. During the presentations, she had been more interested in watching Do-hyun than listening to the speakers. Why had the quiet mechanic caught her attention? For the first time in her 300 years as a selector, Yuna decided to break protocol. Instead of making her decision based only on the formal evaluation, she would observe the humans when they thought they were not being watched. That night, she used her ship's sensors to monitor the human delegation. They were staying in guest quarters on the space station, probably discussing their performance and worrying about her decision. What she saw surprised her completely. The humans were not plotting or scheming. They were not desperately trying to think of ways to impress her. Instead, they were simply being themselves. Do-hyun had noticed that one of the station's maintenance robots was malfunctioning. It was causing problems for the alien staff who worked on the station. Without being asked and with no one important watching, he had taken apart his personal toolkit and was quietly fixing the robot. Minho asked him why he was bothering with something that was not their responsibility. Do-hyun looked up from his work and shrugged. "It seemed like the right thing to do," he said simply. Yuna stared at the monitor screen. In 3 centuries of evaluations, she had never seen anything like this. A being who helped others simply because it was right, not because it would benefit him or impress anyone watching. Something deep in her chest began to stir. It was not the familiar emptiness she usually felt. It was something else entirely. Something that might have been hope. Yuna could not sleep. She sat in her private chambers staring at the monitor screens that showed the human delegation. For hours, she watched them interact with each other and the station staff. What she saw challenged everything she thought she knew about evaluation and worth. The next morning, she watched Do-hyun share his breakfast rations with Tae-hyun, a young diplomat who had been too nervous to eat. When Tae-hyun protested that he was fine, Do-hyun simply placed the food in front of him and said, "Everyone needs to eat, especially when they are worried." Later, she observed him helping an elderly alien janitor move heavy cleaning equipment. The janitor had not asked for help. Do-hyun simply saw someone struggling and stepped in to assist. When the alien tried to thank him in broken human language, Do-hyun smiled and responded in the few alien words he had learned, making the janitor laugh with delight. That afternoon, Captain Jiwoo called the delegation together for a private meeting. Yuna activated her listening devices, expecting to hear them discussing strategy for impressing her. Instead, she heard something completely different. "I do not think we passed her evaluation," Jiwoo said quietly. I could see it in her eyes. She looked disappointed, just like the report said she always does. The group fell silent. Several of them looked discouraged. Yuna expected them to become angry or desperate. She had seen both reactions from other species when they realized they were failing. "Maybe we did not show her the right things," suggested Hyun. "Maybe we should have brought leaders from Earth instead of just us." "No," Do-hyun said firmly. "We showed her who we really are. That is all anyone can do. If that is not good enough, then trying to be something else would not help." Minho nodded in agreement. Do-hyun is right. We cannot pretend to be better than we are. We are just ordinary people doing our best. Yuna felt something crack inside her chest. Ordinary people doing their best. The phrase echoed in her mind like a revelation. For 3 centuries, she had been evaluating species based on their extraordinary individuals, their greatest achievements, their most impressive displays of power or intelligence. But what if that was wrong? What if the true measure of a species was not their peaks of greatness but their everyday decency? She watched as Captain Jiwoo struggled with her doubts about leading the delegation. Instead of offering false hope, Do-hyun listened carefully to her concerns. He did not promise her that everything would work out. Instead, he reminded her of the good job she had done under impossible circumstances. "You kept us all calm when that alien ship appeared," he told her. "You made first contact with grace and dignity. You represented humanity better than any of us could have hoped. Win or lose, you should be proud of that." Yuna saw tears in the captain's eyes as she thanked him. It was a moment of genuine human connection, happening because one person chose to offer comfort to another who needed it. That evening, the delegation received word that their formal evaluation was complete. They would receive Yuna's decision the next day. The humans spent their last night on the station quietly, some reading, others talking in small groups. Yuna continued to watch, fascinated by what she was learning about these beings. She saw Minho, noticed that 2 alien species staying on the station were having a dispute over shared facilities. Without being asked to mediate, he approached both groups and helped them work out a compromise. His solution was simple and fair, and both groups accepted it gratefully. She watched Hyun spend an hour teaching a young alien engineer some basic human mathematical concepts that the alien had expressed curiosity about. Hyun gained nothing from this except the pleasure of sharing knowledge. She observed Tae-hyun, despite his nervousness about the evaluation, taking time to learn a few words in the local alien language so he could properly thank the station staff for their hospitality. But it was Do-hyun who continued to amaze her most. Throughout the evening, he performed small acts of kindness that no one requested and few people even noticed. He fixed a broken door that was sticking. He helped an alien child reach something on a high shelf. He listened patiently to an elderly, Alien stories about the old days, even though he probably could not understand most of what was being said. When Minho asked him why he did these things, Do-hyun gave the same answer he had given about fixing the robot. It seemed like the right thing to do. Yuna realized that she was witnessing something she had never seen before in all her centuries of evaluation. She was seeing a species where basic decency was not rare or extraordinary. It was normal. It was expected. It was simply how these humans lived their lives. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. She had been searching for 300 years for species that possessed wisdom, compassion, and moral strength. She had been looking for these qualities in their leaders, their heroes, their greatest achievements. But here was a species where these qualities existed in their ordinary people, where a simple mechanic could embody everything she had been seeking without even trying to be impressive. She thought about all the species she had rejected, the Krillians with their mighty warriors, the Zinthari with their brilliant scientists, the Mokari with their wise philosophers. All of them had shown her their best and brightest, their most exceptional individuals, but none of them had shown her what the humans were showing her now. A civilization where being good to others was not something reserved for special occasions or performed for an audience. It was just how they lived. Yuna sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the implications of what she was seeing. If she was right about this, if the humans truly possessed what she had been searching for, then her decision would not just affect humanity. It would change everything she thought she knew about evaluation and worth. But she had only observed a small group of humans for a few days. How could she be sure that what she was seeing represented their entire species? How could she make a decision about billions of beings based on the actions of a few? The questions troubled her as she prepared for sleep. Tomorrow she would have to give the humans her decision. For the first time in 3 centuries, she was not sure what that decision would be. In her dreams that night, she saw Do-hyun's quiet smile as he helped the alien child. She saw his gentle nod of encouragement to Captain Jiwoo. She saw his simple shrug when asked why he chose to help others. When she woke the next morning, she knew what she had to do. But first, she needed to be absolutely certain that what she had observed was real. Yuna stood before the mirror in her chambers, staring at her reflection. In a few hours, she would meet with the human delegation to deliver her decision. But first, she needed to conduct one final test. For the first time in her career as a selector, she was going to break every rule in the evaluation protocol. Bora entered the room carrying the official evaluation documents. Her green face showed concern as she watched Yuna pace back and forth. "The council is expecting your decision today," Bora said carefully. "The rejection forms are prepared as usual. All you need to do is sign them." Yuna took the documents but did not look at them. "What if I told you I was considering accepting the humans?" Bora's eyes widened in shock. After 3 centuries of rejections, what could these humans possibly have shown you that no other species has? "That is what I need to find out," Yuna replied. "I need to be absolutely certain about what I observed." She explained her plan to Bora, who listened with growing alarm. "You want to lie to them?" Bora asked. "You want to tell them they have been rejected and then watch how they react?" "I need to see how they behave when they think no one is evaluating them anymore," Yuna said. "Every species I have observed has performed for me, shown me their best behavior because they knew they were being judged. But I need to see what the humans are really like when they believe the evaluation is over." Bora shook her head. "This is completely against protocol. If the council finds out you deceived a species during evaluation, you could lose your position entirely." "I am going to lose my position anyway if I keep rejecting every species," Yuna pointed out. "This may be my last chance to understand what I have been searching for." An hour later, Yuna met with the human delegation in the same hall, where the formal presentations had taken place. The humans sat quietly, clearly nervous about receiving her decision. Captain Jiwoo had dark circles under her eyes, suggesting she had not slept well. Yuna felt a stab of guilt about what she was planning to do. These people had tried their best to represent their species with dignity. They deserved honesty from her. But she needed to know the truth about their nature. I have completed my evaluation of humanity, she announced formally. After careful consideration of your presentations and observations of your behavior, I have reached my decision. The humans leaned forward slightly. Do-hyun sat in the back as usual, his expression calm and accepting. The Valari Council finds humanity unworthy of ascension to galactic civilization, Yuna said, hating herself for the lie. You will return to your home system and have no further contact with advanced species until you have evolved beyond your current limitations. The silence that followed was deafening. Captain Jiwoo's face went pale. Several of the younger delegation members looked like they might cry. Hyun stared at the floor, his shoulders slumped with defeat, but Do-hyun's expression barely changed. He simply nodded, as if he had expected this outcome. Thank you for your time, Selector Yuna, Captain Jiwoo said quietly. We are disappointed, but we respect your decision. We will return to our people and tell them what we have learned. You have until tomorrow to leave this station, Yuna continued, still hating every word. Use that time to prepare for your journey home. She left, the hall quickly unable to bear the sight of their disappointment any longer. Now came the real test. She activated every monitoring system on her ship and prepared to observe how the humans behaved when they thought their fate was sealed. At first, their reactions were exactly what she expected. Some were angry, others sad. Taehyun blamed himself for not being a better representative. Hyun wondered if they should have brought different information about human science, but within a few hours, something remarkable began to happen. The humans started helping the station staff with various problems they had noticed during their stay. They organized repairs on broken equipment. They shared human music with lonely alien workers who seemed to enjoy the strange new sounds. They even helped resolve a dispute between two other species who were also waiting for evaluation. Yuna watched in amazement as Captain Jiwoo, despite her own disappointment, spent time comforting a young alien, whose species had been rejected the week before. The alien had been crying alone in a corner of the station's common area. I know how you feel, Jiwoo told the alien gently. Rejection hurts, but it does not mean your people are worthless. It just means you need more time to grow. Minho discovered that the station's communication system was having problems. Even though fixing it would not benefit the humans in any way, he spent hours working on it until it was running better than it had in months. But it was Do-hyun who provided the most revealing moment of all. Yuna watched as he found Gyun, a young alien engineer who worked on the station. The alien had been struggling with a complex repair that was beyond his current skills. His supervisors were growing impatient with his failures. Do-hyun sat down beside Gyun and began teaching him human repair techniques that might help with the problem. They worked together for hours, with Do-hyun patiently explaining each step. Why are you helping me? Gyun asked in broken human language. Your people have been rejected. You gain nothing from this. Do-hyun smiled and continued working. Helping people should not depend on what you get in return, he said simply. You needed help, and I could provide it. That is reason enough. Minho, who was passing by, overheard this conversation. He paused to listen as Gyun asked another question. But surely you must be angry about the rejection. Your species worked so hard to impress the selector. Of course we are disappointed, Do-hyun replied. But being rejected does not change who we are or what we should do. We are still the same people we were before we met her. We should still try to help others when we can. Yuna felt tears forming in her silver eyes. In 3 centuries of evaluations, she had never witnessed anything like what she was seeing now. A species that maintained their moral principles even in defeat. People who continued to show kindness and generosity, even when they had nothing to gain from it. She thought about the Krillians who had raged and threatened when she rejected them. She remembered the Zenthari, who had tried to bribe her staff for a second chance. She recalled the Mokari, who had begged and pleaded for reconsideration, but the humans simply accepted her decision and continued being themselves. They helped others because it was right, not because it served their interests. As she watched Do-hyun successfully teach Gyun the repair technique, Yuna realized that her search was finally over. After 300 years, she had found what she had been looking for all along. The question now was whether she had the courage to act on that discovery. What she was considering would change everything about how species were evaluated for galactic citizenship. It might even change the nature of galactic civilization itself. But as she watched the humans prepare for their departure, while still finding ways to help others, she knew she had no choice. Tomorrow, she would call them back and tell them the truth. She just hoped the galaxy was ready for what she was about to do. The Great Council chamber had not seen such tension in over 1,000 years. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive hall, all waiting to hear Selector Yuna deliver what everyone expected would be another rejection. The betting. Pools on various worlds were giving odds of 1,000 to 1 against human acceptance. Yuna stood at the center of the chamber, her silver robes flowing around her like liquid starlight. In the viewing gallery above, she could see the human delegation watching nervously. She had called them back that morning and told them there had been an error in her evaluation. They deserved to hear her real decision in person. Council leader. Thane sat on the high throne, his ancient face showing the weariness of centuries. Around him, the other council members whispered among themselves. Many had already prepared statements calling for an end to the Selector program. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Yuna began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. For 300 years I have served as your selector. In that time I have evaluated over 500 species. I have rejected them all. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some of the rejected species representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Many of you have questioned my judgments. You have wondered if my standards were too high, or if perhaps my abilities had failed me. Today, I stand before you to admit that you were right to question me. The murmurs grew louder. Council leader Thane leaned forward, his eyes sharp with interest. But not in the way you think, Yuna continued. My standards were not too high. My abilities have not failed. The problem was that I was looking for the wrong things in the wrong places. She turned slowly, meeting the eyes of representatives from species she had rejected over the centuries. I evaluated each of your civilizations based on your greatest achievements. I looked at your mightiest warriors, your wisest leaders, your most brilliant scientists. I judged you based on the peaks of what your species could accomplish. A Krillian representative stood up angrily. And we showed you our greatness, our 12 conquered systems, our mighty fleets. What more could you have wanted? That is exactly the problem, Yuna replied calmly. I was measuring you by your exceptions, your extraordinary individuals, your greatest moments. But that is not how a species should be judged. She gestured toward the human delegation in the gallery. The humans have shown me something I never understood before. True worthiness for galactic citizenship is not measured by how high your peaks can reach. It is measured by how decent your ordinary people choose to be when no one is watching. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several representatives shouted objections. Council leader Thane struck his staff against the floor, calling for order. Explain yourself, Selector, Thane commanded. Yuna activated a holographic display that showed recordings of her observations. The chamber watched in silence as images of Do-hyun fixing the maintenance robot, sharing food with nervous colleagues, and teaching repair techniques to an alien engineer filled the air above them. This is Do-hyun, Yuna said. He is not a leader, or a warrior, or a scientist. He is an ordinary human mechanic. But watch what he does when he thinks no one important is observing him. The recordings continued, showing scene after scene of simple human decency, helping without being asked, sharing without expecting anything in return, showing kindness to strangers who could offer no benefit. Every species I have evaluated has shown me their best individuals performing at their highest level, Yuna explained. But the humans showed me something far more valuable. They showed me a civilization where basic goodness is not rare or exceptional. It is normal. It is expected. It is simply how they live. The Zenthari ambassador rose from his seat. You reject our greatest philosophers and scientists, but accept them because a mechanic helps strangers? This is madness. Is it? Yuna challenged. Tell me, Ambassador, what happens in your society when your greatest philosophers are not watching? How do your ordinary citizens treat each other when there is no benefit to being kind? How much compassion exists in your daily life when no one is keeping score? The Zenthari fell silent, his face troubled. Yuna looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representative after representative. That is the question I should have been asking all along. Not what are your greatest achievements, Yanlor, but how do your ordinary people choose to live? Not who are your heroes, but what does heroism mean to the average member of your species? Council. Leader Thane studied the human delegation for a long moment. And you believe the humans pass this test? I know they do, Yuna replied firmly. I tested them. I told them they had been rejected and watched how they behaved when they thought the evaluation was over. Instead of anger or despair, they continued helping others. Instead of focusing on their disappointment, they found ways to make life better for everyone around them. She turned to face the full council. I formally recommend that humanity be accepted for galactic citizenship, but more than that, I recommend that we completely change how we evaluate species for membership. The chamber fell silent. What Yuna was suggesting would revolutionize the entire system. You are proposing to judge civilizations by their common decency rather than their great achievements? Asked another council member. I am proposing that we judge them by both, Yuna replied. A species needs sufficient technology and knowledge to contribute to galactic civilization, but more importantly, they need the moral foundation to use that advancement responsibly. And that foundation is not built by exceptional individuals. It is built by ordinary people making good choices every day. She gestured again toward the human delegation. The humans may not be the most advanced species we have encountered. They may not have the strongest military or the most brilliant scientists. But they have something more valuable. They have created a society where kindness is normal, where helping others is expected, where doing the right thing is just how people live. Council Leader Thane stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking. If we accept your recommendations, Selector Yuna, it will change everything. Species that were rejected under the old system might demand re-evaluation. Our entire understanding of civilization and worthiness will need to be reconsidered. Yes, Yuna agreed. It will, and it should be. The voting that followed took 3 hours. Representatives argued, debated, and questioned. But in the end, the decision was unanimous. Humanity was accepted into galactic civilization, becoming the first species to pass Yuna's evaluation in 3 centuries. More importantly, the Council voted to reform the entire selector program based on Yuna's recommendations. After the formal ceremonies ended, Yuna found herself alone with the human delegation. Captain Jiwoo approached her with tears in her eyes. Thank you, Selector Yuna, she said quietly. We will do our best to prove worthy of your faith in us. But it was Do-hyun who provided the moment that Yuna would remember for the rest of her long life. The mechanic approached her with his characteristic calm expression. I hope this works out well for everyone, he said simply. Not a thank you for choosing humanity, not a promise to make her proud. Just a genuine hope that her decision would benefit all the species involved. Yuna smiled as she watched the humans prepare to return home with news that would change their world forever. Do-hyun was already back to being himself, helping load equipment and making sure everyone had what they needed for the journey. He had no idea that his simple acts of everyday decency had potentially changed the course of galactic civilization. And somehow Yuna suspected that even if he knew, it would not change how he treated others. As their ship disappeared into the starfield, Yuna felt something she had not experienced in 3 centuries of service. She felt hope. The galaxy was about to become a very different place. And for the first time in her long life, she believed it was going to become a better one. Standing at the observation port of her ship, watching the stars, Yuna thought about the future. There would be challenges ahead. Other species would need to be re-evaluated. The entire structure of galactic civilization would need to adapt to new ideas about what made a society worthy of membership. But somewhere out there, An ordinary human mechanic was probably fixing something that needed repair, helping someone who needed assistance, or simply being kind because it seemed like the right thing to do. And that, Yuna realized, was the most hopeful thought she had ever had.